Hello there everyone, welcome back to James Redmond TV, welcome back to the Redmond Footy View. This weekend is match week 2 of the Premier League, and the difference is for this weekend is there's going to be 10 games compared to the 8 games that there was in week 1, because teams like Manchester City, teams like Manchester United are coming back, and there's some fucking tasty fixtures this weekend, boys. Now I just do want to warn you, if you do not want to know what is going to happen this weekend, then I've got to tell you, do not watch this video, because I'll tell you why. This is not a prediction, it is absolutely a spoiler, and I just want you to be aware of that, because obviously we're mates and I don't want to ruin anything for you. However, if you do want to stay and you do want to watch the full video, then be sure you leave a like, be sure you subscribe, and make sure you're on the journey for the season this year, because it's going to be insane. And this episode, we have got some insane games to predict. Of course, Chelsea versus Liverpool, my team, which I'm going to be talking about in most detail. Obviously because I'm a Liverpool fan, also because it's arguably the most interesting game of the weekend. But on top of this, we've got Manchester City Wolves, which we know from past fixtures that's usually very interesting. Manchester United versus Crystal Palace, another very, very saucy game indeed. Southampton versus Spurs, some very good games taking place this weekend. And here on the Redmond Footy View, we are going to be predicting every single one of them. Now, before I do, make sure you leave all your comments with all your predictions. Make sure you're getting involved with the video. And let's stop chatting shit and let's get into it. So, Chelsea versus Liverpool, two teams that really didn't play that well on the opening day of the season. You know what I mean? Chelsea versus Brighton, Liverpool versus Leeds. We both played very similar opposition. Both didn't really take as much control over the game as we should have. And when I say we face similar opposition, I don't mean in the way that the teams play. I mean more in the fact where they're probably going to finish by the end of the season. Us and Chelsea will probably be there and thereabouts with each other, and Brighton and Leeds will as well. And obviously I've talked about the Leeds and Liverpool game in enough detail on this channel, and you all know my opinions about that game. But as for Chelsea versus Brighton, Chelsea didn't look much better. They got a much better result, a much more convincing result in 3-1. But when you watch the game, Brighton had a lot of control, a lot more control over Chelsea in quite many parts of the game as well. Of course, you can never fucking downplay the team that played well, but with the way Liverpool was getting stick over the weekend, you've just got to look into it. Chelsea have got a new team, they've got a new system, they've got a bunch of new players that they need to implement into that squad, which is going to take time. So one thing I'm going to say about this game that I didn't think about the Leeds game, I thought us playing Leeds was a bad time to play Leeds. I think this is a great time to play Chelsea. I think Frank Lampard's still trying to find his feet. I don't think he's still quite got that system there, which is normal. But that's why I think it could play into our favour. Because if you think that we're going to concede 3 or 4 goals against Chelsea just because we conceded 3 goals against Leeds, I think that's quite ridiculous. Just by the way you saw Chelsea play against Brighton, they do not look that threatening at the minute with what I've seen. Of course, anything can change. But one thing, as us Liverpool fans have had to find out the hard way through losing Europa League finals and Champions League finals, is it takes time to get a team to gel together. It will really be bizarre and really quite impressive if Frank Lampard had that botched after not even the second game of the season. Speaking of Frank Lampard, he's been coming out and chatting just a paquito bit of shit about my manager Jurgen. Now listen, Frankie, I understand as a player, Jurgen Klopp is measly a fucking footnote on the career that you had, and I understand that completely. But understand, when it comes to managers, there's kings of this shit, and Jurgen Klopp is one of those kings. So you stay in your lane when it comes to the managerial side of things, player. Listen, Father Time caught up with you, and you're not a player no more. So listen, fella, don't be coming to my manager and chatting shit just because you've got grey hairs and can't play on the fucking green field no more and decided to change from a fucking kit into a tracksuit or a fucking suit. Start trying to make rivalries with us. What the fuck, Frankie, lads? I mean, quite frankly, Jurgen does not give a fuck what Frank Lampard says. Ever. Never. But I suppose Frankie's always been a bit of a twat to Liverpool, and it's the history. It is what it is. Now, one thing that I think Chelsea are going to really need to worry about this game, and as well as Liverpool, but I'll tell you how I think Liverpool can correct that this game, is defensive play. Of course, Chelsea look very open defensively. I'm hearing stuff like Thiago Silva is still just as good as Virgil van Dijk. Chelsea fans, let's just not get too excited. I know that Thiago Silva's decent, but he is 36. Let's just not lose our heads a little bit, all right? We look a bit exposed defensively. The goalkeeper, Kepa, made a terrible mistake against Brighton. I think that's obviously their number one thing that could play in our favour. But the reason why I talk about the defensive issues is because of how clinical and how on point we looked against Leeds. And Salah, how dangerous he looked against Leeds. Regardless of the 2 penalties, he had a great game overall. And unless obviously Chelsea can bring in a new goalkeeper just before the game, which this is being recorded on Friday, the game is Sunday, so even if they do, it's not like he's going to play, then I can see us really causing them problems. Also, one thing I think Liverpool need to do this game is start Fabinho. I think that's essential. If you start Fabinho, you've got more cover defensively. Of course, we've just signed Thiago. Come in! The boss signing. Watch my last video if you haven't already. But I don't see Thiago. I mean, as of time of recording, Thiago hasn't actually been announced by the club, but it is basically a done deal. But I do not see him starting this game. Whereas I think if you start Fabinho, put Henderson and Gini in front of him, I think that's a perfect midfield to take control for this game. Fabinho gives you that more defensive cover. Obviously, Henderson and Gini Wijnaldum can do their thing. I think if you make a change to the back line as well, yeah, I'll do my starting 11 dead quick. What I think Liverpool should start with. So, Alisson in goal, of course. Robbo left back. Trent right back. Virgil van Dijk. And next to Virgil van Dijk, I want to see Joel Matip. I just think that for this game, this could be a perfect game for him. And Joe Gomez, I think, just needs a few more minutes this season, which kind of contradicts what I'm saying right now. But I just think, let's just see how Joel Matip does with seeing how we've done poorly defensively with Joe Gomez there. Not saying it's Joe Gomez's fault, just saying change it up and see how it goes. Midfield, Fabinho in the DM, 2 midfielders just in front of him, Henderson and Gini Wijnaldum, and then the front 3 in Mane, Salah and Firmino. I think that's the way Liverpool have got to approach this game. I think if you do take that approach, then we have a phenomenal chance of winning this game for sure. Don't get me wrong, I think it's going to be close, but I am, of course, always going to go with my team. I am not as worried as a lot of other Liverpool fans are at the minute. I'm going to go with a 2-0 win to Liverpool. I actually think we're going to keep a clean sheet. I just think if we make those changes that I feel like are necessary, like Fabinho coming in, maybe Joe Gomez for Matip, but I don't think that's quite as essential. But if we just make a few minor tweaks and give the players a few more minutes, I think we can stop the goals coming in. Listen, we've been the best defence in the league before. Just because we've shown a few games of poor form defensively doesn't mean it's going to be like that all season. But let me know in the comments down below, Liverpool, Chelsea fans, what do you think is going to happen in Sunday's clash? Anyway, we move into Manchester City versus Wolves. Of course, Manchester City's first game back after their hiatus of the Champions League, which they got knocked out by Lyon. Let me know in the comments down below, dead quick, has Pep Guardiola underachieved at Manchester City? If you ask me, I think the one thing that Manchester City wanted more than anything was that Champions League. The Premier League is all good, but they've got plenty of them now. Like Liverpool, when we had the Champions League, it was boss, but we didn't have that Premier League that everyone was talking about. City are in that same situation. Now, obviously, this fixture is very interesting. Obviously, Wolves beat City twice last year in quite convincing manner. Of course, they were close games, but I think even in the last 3 encounters, the first of them 3 being a Asia Premier League trophy fixture, which Wolves won on penalties, which means they've actually won the last 3 fixtures against Manchester City. Also, bear in mind, Wolves have just had a game against Sheffield United on the opening game of the weekend, winning 2-0. Jimenez looking on fire. Adama Traore causes City problems all the fucking time. Genuinely, with the way this fixture's going, we could be looking at a game of the weekend, a fixture of the weekend. Listen, I do have a lot of faith in Wolves, but I just think City could edge this one. Listen, it's the first game back in the Premier League. If you think that they're not going to be fired up, then you are wrong. Also, they have always got more quality than probably anyone in the league when it comes to on paper. And with that being said, I think they're going to set up right. They're not going to want to give any more fucking results to Wolves. They're not going to. Otherwise, Wolves will become that bogey team for them, which they are quite at the minute. But I do think this fixture that ends, I do see City just about winning it. It's not going to be a big landslide victory in my opinion, but I do think they're going to win. And I'm going to give City 2, Wolverhampton 1. Another team that's returning to the Premier League for the first time this season in Manchester United at home to Crystal Palace. Now, before I do talk about Manchester United in detail, Palace started off their opening weekend game well against Southampton. Sound win for them, don't get me wrong. Roy Hodgson needs as many victories as he can leading up into this fixture specifically. So that when you look at that game, that was actually a must-win for Crystal Palace. Of course, you can never overlook players like Zaha, such a big game player who can turn it up. Mate, you look at Manchester United, they've got the first full season with Bruno Fernandes in that midfield. Then they've just brought in Van der Beek. They've got Paul Pogba, who I understand hasn't lived up to the upper echelon of what Paul Pogba can live up to since joining the Premier League, but he's still Paul Pogba, still going to cause Crystal Palace a lot of problems. And Manchester United have got momentum behind them. Listen, Man United fans, we have a funny relationship, but at the end of the day, I can only really say how I see it. I do think the game is going to be close, but I do see United's edge in this game. I don't really think the fact that it's going to be the first game is going to hinge them too much. Palace have only played one game themselves, so I'm going to give United 3, Crystal Palace 1. Let me know in the comments down below if you agree with that. Now, here's one that I mentioned at the start of the video as being one of the fixtures I'm looking forward to most, purely based on what I've seen from both of these teams in the opening day of the season. So Southampton versus Spurs, of course, both lost their opening day of the season. Gareth Bale's former clubs coming at it in and around the time Gareth Bale is coming to Tottenham. Let me know in the comments down below, what do you think of the Gareth Bale to Tottenham? Very interesting signing, very saucy indeed. Listen, it's exciting. It's exciting. I'm not saying he's going to do great. I'm not saying he's going to do terrible. Quite frankly, I don't really know, just because it's been so long since he's been in the Premier League. I don't think he's going to dominate it like he did when he last left. But it's fun. If Liverpool re-sign Luis Suarez, I'd be excited. And I have every right to be. So for any Spurs fans watching, listen, go for Gareth Bale. But anyway, back into this game alone. I'm just not too confident about Spurs in this game, regardless, with Gareth Bale and all that. It brings a bit more positiveness around the club. But I just didn't see a lot in that Everton game that tells me Spurs are going to push on, at least early on this season, and build a bit of momentum. It just doesn't look like it's going to happen. Like, Spurs basically let Everton have the ball, and Spurs could have done a lot better. I think even Spurs fans can agree that Spurs should have done a lot more running in that game. I just don't know how this game's going to go, and I actually think Southampton played well against Crystal Palace, regardless of the fact that they lost. Such a close game, so tight, and both teams can score. You've got Harry Kane versus Danny Ings. Oh, let me know in the comments down below, but I'm going to edge it to Spurs. Don't think he's been playing well. Don't even think he'll play well this game. But I do think you could just nick the points that you really, really need. Everton versus West Bromwich Albion. Now, both teams won their EFL Cup games midweek. Very, very good for them, of course. And then the team that you're obviously expecting me to talk about here, in Everton mostly, they look solid against Spurs. Like I said, I'm not trying to take anything away from Everton when I say Spurs never turned up. At the end of the day, Carlo Ancelotti did enough and did what was necessary to get the result on that day, which is what they needed to do. And also, their midfield, Everton's midfield right now just looks like it's going to cause so many problems. Of course, it's got so much more to prove. But as far as a start goes, that's a great start, and they played well in 100% of the games. West Brom lacking creativity against Leicester City, losing 3-0. That was not a great game for them, but it's going to take time for them to find their feet, of course. But in this fixture, you would have to go with Everton most of the time, of course. But I am not going with Everton in this fixture, and it's nothing to do with a hatred towards Everton fans. Like I said, I go for points on this show, and sometimes to get points, you've got to take risks. Therefore, I'm going for a 1-1 draw. I think West Brom can nick it. I think Everton... Sorry about knocking my camera there. I think Everton will be leading the game, and then I think late on somewhere, fucking Pereira or someone will come in and just slot one away. So I'm going for a 1-1 draw. Let me know in the comments down below what you think. However, I do think if anyone's more likely to win, it would definitely be Everton. Arsenal versus West Ham. Another very interesting fixture indeed. But I have got to edge Arsenal. They've got so much momentum under them at the minute. I'm not even trying to lick Arsenal fans' arse or the club's arse or anything like that, mate. But they just seriously look boss. They've just won 2 trophies, just won the opening game of the season. Not arsed if it was against Fulham. They have every right to be excited. They're facing a West Ham team who on the opening day of the season against Newcastle didn't look too great. It's not a good time to be Moise. I'll tell you that for free. Of course, they've just signed a new contract with a blood clot, young. Which is just always fun. It's always fun to be an Arsenal fan. Well, it's not always fun, but it's fun right now to be an Arsenal fan. And I do see Arsenal continuing their winning ways. and I'm going to say 2-0 Arsenal. And then a few more fixtures to run through before we end the video. Leeds United and Fulham, mate, both lost their opening day of the season, both newly promoted sides, but how can you go against Leeds and Bielsa in that game with how they shown their absolute power on that first day of the season? 3-0 win to Leeds United. Then Leeds and Burnley. Very interesting game. I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw there. I can see that being a very close game. If anyone edges it, it's of course Leicester, but Burnley can be a fucking cunt. So I'm going to give them the hit of the hope and give them a 2-2 draw. Aston Villa and Sheffield United. Going to edge it to Sheffield 1-0. And then Newcastle and Brighton, another really good fixture. I'm actually going to give Newcastle that game. I'm going to say 2-1 to Newcastle. Good start under Steve Bruce. But Brighton, like I said before, played brilliantly against Chelsea in the opening day of the season. But let me know in the comments down below. Let me make sure I haven't missed any fixtures there, because that would be fairly embarrassing. No, let me know in the comments down below what you thought of all my predictions. Like I said, this is not a prediction. This is a spoiler. So you have just been given a free insight to what's going to happen this weekend. For sure. Anyway, nice one for watching, yous. Thank you so much for all the support on the channel. As always, make sure you leave a like, make sure you subscribe, and make sure you are on the journey for this season, because there's so much boss content coming your way. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you later. Ta-ra.